Hey YouTube, Captain Marc here from Kinsling Sport Fishing. Today I'm going to do a video on a really common question. I often get asked this question, whether it be on Facebook, instant messages, comments to videos, or even at the dock when I'm coming back from a charter. And the question is, how long of a leader do I run behind my Cannonball? It is a very popular question, and I wouldn't say it's an easy question. In my mind, there's four rules of thumb when it comes to this question. You know, they are the rule of 100, based on the time of your day, based on the lures in the water, and using your electronics to see what the fish are telling you. So I'm going to dive right in, but before I do that, if I can ask you to subscribe and like to my channel if you find these videos valuable, it helps me out a great deal as an amateur YouTube content producer. So let's dive in and talk about rule number one in my mind, which is the rule of 100. And what this rule is, it's really, you take the number 100 and you subtract the depth of your downrigger. So if you have a downrigger at 40 feet, you subtract 40 from 100 and you would get 60. And that will tell you on your 40-foot rigger, you need to run a 60-foot leader. So let's pretend that that's your starboard side. So on your starboard side, it's your high rigger, 40 feet down, 60 feet leader. Let's say on your port rigger, you're going to run 70 feet down. So with the rule of 100, you'll take 100, subtract 70, and your leader will be 30. So on that particular rod, you'll have it down 70, out 30. That's the rule of 100. And that is I'd say that's probably one of the fail-safe rules that you can use throughout the day. And that's rule number one. Rule number two, though, is making a decision based on the time of day. In the morning, the salmon typically are more aggressive, more actively feeding. And in that case, what I like to do is when I'm out first thing in the morning, typically around 5 a.m., 5:30, depending on the time of the season, usually it's right before sunup, I'm running a really short leader. Typically, my longest leader first thing in the morning is 20, 25 feet. I believe the fish are very active. They're not spooked by the boat. They're not spooked by the cannonballs. If anything, I think they act as attractants. So that's when I'll run a shorter leader in the morning. As the day progresses, I will start to lengthen that leader. I may still have it. I will still have a short leader when I'm running deep. If I'm running down 80 feet, 100 feet plus, I'll be in that 20-foot range. But as the day progresses, as it gets clear and the sun comes up, those rods or those downriggers that are up higher, closer to the boat, I feel that the boat starts to spook the fish. And therefore, I'm really starting to let those leaders out. It's not uncommon for people to say that later in the day that their long lines or their junk lines like copper, weighted steel, lead core start to take more fish. And my view is those are all great. Those are all great rods and great hardware. But I think part of the reason is they're actually further away from the boat. In a lot of cases, when you're running a 200 weighted steel, a 250 weighted steel, they're 200, 250, 300 feet away from the boat. So as the day progresses, it's not uncommon for me to, with my high downrigger, to really stretch the leads out. Running a 60, 80, even 100-foot leader on a high rigger, getting it away from the boat. One thing I typically don't do, though, is I won't run that long of a leader on both riggers. I'll save that for the high rigger. And the reason being is if I do that on a deep rigger and I run 100 feet a leader and I get a fish hit that, it's highly likely when that fish starts coming up to the surface, it's going to tangle around one of your divers or it's going to tangle around that other rigger. That's one of the benefits with your deep rigger of having a shorter leader. So hopefully that makes sense. Early morning, shorter leader, fish are much more aggressive. They're active. As you get through the day, stretch those leaders out. And then as you start getting closer to dusk or sunset, start bringing those leaders in again. The fish start getting active. So that's the second rule. The third rule or factor that I consider is actually what lures do I have in the water. Let's say on my port rigger, I've got a flasher and a meat rig. And let's say I've got that with it's a 50-foot rigger, and I've got a 50-foot leader on that particular one, and that sounds fine. But if I go to my starboard rigger now, and I'm planning to run a spoon, and let's say I'm going to run that at 45 or 40 feet, I probably don't want to have a 55 foot leader, because I'm going to put my spoon right in the vicinity of a thumping flasher making all kinds of noise in the water. And I don't want that. So what I will do is, if I've got a rig on one rigger with a pretty large attractor, like a hot fish 10 or 11-inch flasher, I will stretch out the leader on that spoon, because I want that spoon to be away. So in that particular case, I just said to you there is, on that the higher of the two riggers, I may put a 70-80 foot leader so that the spoon is further back from that thumping flasher. I don't want to have a thumping flasher right where there's a spoon. Plus, I'm of the view that you might have a fish come into the spread because of that flasher, and it might start following that meat rig. But as it disengages, I find when they disengage, they turn around, and they may see that spoon that I've got slightly higher, further back, and that might actually be the rod that they hit. You know, it's not uncommon, and I saw this a lot on a friend's boat running the Garmin Panoptic system. It's not uncommon at all to have a fish enter your spread because of one particular rod or one particular rigger, like downrigger, but actually that particular line doesn't get hit a lot. But the fish comes in because of that line, and then they actually hit a line on the other side of the boat. It's not uncommon at all to see that. And I'm sure you've all had that situation where, you've got one rod doing all the work, and, it's at a particular depth or it's got a particular color. So you start changing up the other rigger, and then suddenly your spread dies. Well, you know what? That's exactly what I'm talking about right now. That other rod was actually doing the work, bringing them in, and then they were biting the other candy or the other goodies you have in your spread. And then there's the last rule, the last factor I take into account when I'm setting my leader lengths when downrigging. And this one is you've got to look and listen to what the fish, your electronics, are telling you. Right here I've got some sonar graphs of what I call fish following or chasing the balls. And so if you can see that the salmon, they're actually snaking and following the cannonballs, but they're not biting. So when I see that, and it happens to me, and it happens to many other captains. You can see these screens. They're from different sonars, because actually I asked some captains of mine to share some pictures of this exact thing happening. When this is happening, I find the fish they're so infatuated with the cannonballs. They're being attracted to your spread or attracted to the boat, but they're not actually engaging with your rigs. What this tells me is your rigs are actually probably too far back from the boat. You've probably got 40, 50, 60, 70 foot leaders, and your rigs are further back. When I see this happen, I do one thing. I really tighten up those leaders. That's when I'm going to run a 15, 20 foot leader. I'm bringing the flashers and the baits much closer to the boat. If I'm running a spoon only, I might put a spoon at this point only 10 feet behind the cannonball. I really start trying to shorten out my leaders at that point in time when I see these fish snaking and following the boat on my sonar. I'll tell you, there are many, many times I see that happen. I shorten leaders up, I put it down, and next thing you know, we got a fish on. That is almost a fail-safe for me when I do see the fish following on the sonar. So I hope you find these tips useful. It's not a simple answer question to how long of a leader should you run, but I find that these 4 rules, when you consider those 4 things, they'll really help you make the right decision and help you put more fish in the boat. Thank you very much. I hope you do like these videos and like my channel. Don't forget to like the videos, and please don't forget to subscribe. It helps me out a great deal. Good luck on the water. Good luck prepping, and hope you catch a big one in 2022. Talk to you later, folks. Have a good one.